What is up, people? It's your boy here, Triple S Storm, and today I'm going to be talking about the next gen consoles. And by next gen consoles, I'm not talking about your Xbox One X's, and I'm not talking about your PS4 Pro. No, what I'm talking about is the next gen consoles, because the Xbox One X and the PS4 Pro are obviously console midterm refreshers for the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 Pro. So what I'm actually talking about is the actual next gen consoles, being your Nintendo Switch, which actually came out earlier this year, and of course the new Atari box, which is set to come out sometime either later this year or next year. Those are your next gen consoles, and those are the consoles that I'm talking about. And I'm not going to be beating around the bush right now. I'm going to just get straight into it and start off with the Nintendo Switch. And what is it about the Nintendo Switch that makes it so unique? Aside from the fact that you could actually carry the Nintendo Switch like portable anywhere you're going, one of the things that have make this thing have like a 3-to-1 attach rate or something like that, where there's like more switches being bought, or more cards being bought more than the switches, or whichever the case want to be, is the fact that it's one of those games that really focuses on the things that make it a great console, and not the things that they're trying to like shove down your face. Like the fact that, yeah, it's a game that you can carry with you portable. It's a home console where you can put it on the dock and you can watch your game's being run on your TV or whatever, and just like, oh, well, that's nice. And if you want to go somewhere, you can actually carry it with you. And the fact that there are so many different accessories that you guys can like use to add to your Switch to make your Switch have a much better experience, and like backup battery powers and all that stuff, and extra Joy Cons, different ways in which you can customize your controllers, as in by Joy-Con grip, Pro controller, or simply by buying one of those online ones that you can buy, which is has like turbo mode and all that stuff. And there's so many different merch that is coming out for the Nintendo Switch. There's carry cases. There are like those stickers that they made that whenever you put them on, they kind of peel off and they take a lot of the Switch's color with it. But with that being said, we've pretty much dived into that, and we talk about how successful Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is, how successful we've talked about Super Mario Odyssey in the past, and honestly, Super Mario Odyssey, when it comes out, it's gonna do great. We've seen what Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild has done, and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has done. ARMS has been doing great as well, along with Splatoon 2 and all the other games that have come out for the Nintendo Switch. So it is safe to say that the Nintendo Switch right now is probably the number one console in the world. And yes, it is the next gen console. A lot of people keep saying that it's not the next gen console, but you guys have to remember the current gen consoles are the Nintendo Wii U, the Xbox One, that being your One S, and your One X or Onyx, depends on how you want to call it, and your PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 4 Pro. Those are the current gen consoles. Those are the consoles that are in the generation that we are currently gaming in. Maybe not so much the Wii U, as a lot of people have classified it as being a dead console, but definitely with the PS4 Pro and with the Xbox One. So, those are your current gen consoles. Next gen consoles, well, starting the console race is obviously the Nintendo Switch, as I've said that before, and now the Atari box. So, now that we've talked about the Nintendo Switch, let's jump into the Atari box. Now, a lot of people thought that this was a bad time to make a console, especially for a company like Atari, which actually, they actually brought consoles to the Western market and they died, and Nintendo kind of revived it back. But what a lot of people don't realize is the fact that this is probably the perfect time for Atari to actually come out and make a console, because when you think about it, here's kind of a few reasons why. One, the current console race only has three players in it. I know that there are tons of other console makers out there that make smaller consoles through like Raspberry Pis and like small ARM chips and whatever it is, but these guys don't really get called up within that conversation of consoles. When you say consoles, you say, oh, Xbox, PlayStation, or Nintendo. So with the Atari box coming now, being the next gen console for Atari to enter the console race, we would actually have four consoles in our console race. And here's what's going to happen, at least from my perspective. There's going to be I'm not going to say like a bottleneck, but there's always that bar which is set for what a console should be in the current or the next gen. Well, our current gen right now, the bar that they're trying to make is 4K. And the reason why a company like Nintendo hasn't really contested this is the fact that even in an interview when they asked a representative from Nintendo, I'm not sure his actual role or who the actual person was, but I read this a long time ago, where they said they're not really focusing on 4K because they did a survey and not many people have a 4K TV, which is true. I don't have a 4K TV. Odds are you're watching this video, you don't have a 4K TV either. And if you go outside and you go to your neighbor, he doesn't have a 4K TV. And if you call your nan, who actually has like 6 or 7 of your uncles and probably your dad as support, that you ask her, well, she probably has a 4K TV, even though she can't even watch it because she probably has cataracts or whatever. But fact being that 4K TVs aren't that common because 4K technology is kind of new, and we already have like 6K and 8K and 10K coming sometime in the future, because that's really what they're trying to make the console race be about right now, and that is the jump in resolution, which kind of sucks for me, honestly, because I'd like to see console, well, not console per se, but like gaming on a whole be evolved to something more than just graphics, where it's like, oh, well, if you have a PC, you're going to have to upgrade your PC because it doesn't have enough graphics, and well, if you have a console, then there's no point in playing it on the current gen console when the next gen consoles plays it in 4K at 60 frames per second. That's kind of okay, well, I really have to choose between throwing in an extra $200 to get a console that'll play the game at 4K at 60 frames per second versus my current gen console, which plays the game at 1080p or 720p at 60 frames per second. It's not really that thing that you just jump and just throw out some money like that, because honestly, you will notice the difference. It is it's a graphical difference. However, it's not like oh, you're jumping from like Microsoft 2000 or Windows 2000 to Windows 10, where it's like, oh, I can definitely see the difference. It's like sharper, cleaner, whatever. No, it's not like that. It's just more crisp and more refined. But that's pretty much what they're trying to make it all about now. And honestly, I respect Nintendo for the fact that they actually step away from the whole this whole 4K thing and just kind of focus on 720 and 1080p, because I mean 720 and 1080p still look good. I don't know why you have to force the 4K thing. And another thing that was a big problem to me with this whole 4K gaming thing, even with the 1080p gaming thing, was the fact that due to the fact that they have to put so much work into the graphical details of making these games, oftentimes these games actually get made, sometimes in a hurry, sometimes when they get made, a lot of the content is actually missing. And sometimes, and I mean, well, not sometimes, most of the times these games are short. And One of the biggest reasons for this is, let's see if I can give you guys a perfect example. Let's say, for example, a game asset, if you guys even understand what I'm talking about. Let's say a game asset, which is a box, would cost like 1 kilobyte for the box and like half a kilobyte for the material which will go around the box. Now you have a 4K HDR of the exact same asset being like 15 megabytes for the box asset and like 12 megabytes for the actual material that goes around the asset. Now that takes up a lot more space than the standard asset pack, which would be like your 720 or 1080p. So in reality, these assets actually take up a lot more space. Also, due to the entire HDR rendering, it actually takes up a lot more processing power as well. So oftentimes you end up getting a game which most of the content that makes up the actual memory of the game or the size of the game is actually just the assets and how defined these assets are, instead of it being the enormity of what the game is on a whole, if you guys really understand what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is basically where they could have like 50 levels in a game, they have to like minimize it to like 25 or 30 because, you know, well, yeah, we're getting HDR gaming and stuff. And that happens a lot of time. A lot of games that happens too. So with like the current Atari console coming out, the Atari box, I'm really hoping, well, they did say that it's going to be able to run like next gen games and, you know, current gen games and, you know, all that stuff. So yeah, we definitely know that it's going to be able to perform well, right? How well, we don't know yet. It is, however, going to be using PC technology is what they say, which means from my perspective, at least, I'm not a super analyst on this stuff, but from my perspective, I'm guessing what this means is instead of them building something from the ground up, like say back in the days where they'd have like the Sega Dreamcast, for example, where Sega Dreamcasts would have been built with like arcade parts and them using special chips to do sound rendering and special chips to do graphics and all that stuff. It wouldn't be that case with the Atari box, whereas they could just like say, okay, let's just put a custom graphics card in there and, you know, kind of put in a, let's say, i8 or an i7 processor in there, you know, and, you know, just kind of put some PC parts, just kind of get these PC parts and just shove it in a box, you know, and just kind of customize the board a bit so the parts kind of fit, and, you know, just kind of refine it out, put a custom OS on there and have it run as a console. That's my analysis is what they say. However, I could be wrong. It could be a case where they go, we need to put some work into this stuff, and they actually put some actual work in it. So that could be the case. However, if they do it the way that I said they will do, where they kind of just get PC parts and kind of shove it together, it'll be slightly quicker for them to actually publish it instead of them actually being able to customize different parts from the ground up to build it up, because it's kind of easier for them to, like, you know, access stuff. They just put stuff together, you know, than to actually have an entire factory to build these parts to custom and then have them put it together, assemble it, instead of just like, you know, okay, this technology is already out there, so we can actually use this to our advantage and just make stuff. So, and, you know, that's one of the things that'll kind of make this Atari box thing kind of really fly. Aside from that, one of the other things that will be a huge factor in making this Atari box thing fly is the fact that the current consoles are really, well, especially with Nintendo, where they're really living off the nostalgia of the older games. And what this kind of proves the point that I said earlier, where older games actually had more levels and more content to the game itself, because like back then you could pretty much say, okay, let's see, the games would have more levels, the games would have more stuff in them because they had a lot more, well, they had less space to work with, but in the in the generation where it was kind of a lot of space for them to work with, so they could do a lot with it. Whereas now we basically have an infinite amount of space to work with. However, is how long it will take for them to actually complete what it is that they're completing with this space, and then to scale it down for it to actually hold on like physical disc, like say for example for them to put it on a CD. I mean, if they should make it a digital download, then it'll be no problem. However, they'd have to put it on a disc. And I think what they really trying to eliminate is like back in the days, in like the PlayStation days, where for PlayStation like 1, I think it was, and for the Sega Dreamcast, there were games for like Shenmue and Final Fantasy that had like 4, 5, sometimes even 6 disc or 3 disc, where you would have like a portion of the game on one disc and another portion of the game on the other disc, and then like upon completing the game, there was like the bonus disc that you could use after you've completed the game, which has like a bunch of the other cool stuff and all the stuff that you could achieve and all that stuff. So that's kind of what they're trying to eliminate in the current gen, because they're trying to, go like, oh, we're trying to eliminate some of these stuff from the past to kind of really let you guys realize that you guys are living in the future. However, it's not as sweet as it's cut out to be. But with that said, they are trying to live on the nostalgic hype. The NES Classic was a huge hit. The Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy was a huge hit as well. And pretty much any other game that kind of is a throwback game, I don't think like Xbox needs to go like, build a Xbox Classic or whatever. Even though they have like some legacy collection stuff going on with like Halo or whatever. So I'm not sure, I've done no research on this, but I think it's a thing. I'm guessing it's a thing. So there are stuff like that. And with Atari, pretty much having some games that a lot of people like. I mean, like, I know Pong was pretty popular. I think Pac-Man was on the Atari system. I'm not sure. I've done no research. But like with all these older games from the Atari systems pretty much coming back to the Atari box, as they said, where they said it'll have the older system games running on the Atari box. So that's a plus. They help to bring back that nostalgia. So for the people who haven't played the older Atari games, like myself, who hasn't played a lot of them, can really go back and relive all of those memories. And for the people who, excuse me, sorry, real tired. And for the people who have played these older ones and are looking forward to playing the current gen games or the next gen games, they can actually play these games on their Atari box. So thinking about it, like say for example, the Atari box should drop sometime around December of 2017. You'd have it coming with games like Titanfall 2 and let's just say Call of Duty World War II. So these are games that will be popular regardless. And let's say a new Assassin's Creed game or whatever. These are games that will probably make sense. They'll sell on whichever platform you put them, even if you put them on Nintendo platform right now, because remember, Switches are selling like hotcakes. So you put these stuff out and they run pretty smooth. Obviously, you're gonna have those people out there who are gonna be doing their graphical comparison and they're gonna be doing their frame rate comparison. I remember when the Nintendo Wii U and the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 was out, and I remember see them showing videos where they'd be showing the same game. I think it was Prince of Persia that they were showing. They would show like the same games and they'd show it like split the screen in 3 with PS on one side, Wii on one side, Wii U on one side, sorry, and the Xbox One on the other side, and they would be showing you the difference in like shaders and colors and like the graphics overall and all that stuff, and you'd be looking at it and you're like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I'd probably go for the better one. But then again, if we're talking like with the Atari box now, if they really, and I mean like really want to get this console over, they'd have to make it with an affordable price. Like, I'm not saying that they should go for like Xbox One X level kind of stuff, because honestly, if they're not aiming for 4K gaming, which is something I hope that they don't do, if they don't aim for 4K gaming, but they actually make it to a point where the console can go to 1080p at 60 frames per second and it can run smoothly, like butter over toast or something, and it still has that extra power to can go above the limit, then I believe that they will actually have a say in this, because there are people out there with their games that will actually try to maximize the potential of this console. So when these dev kits start rolling out, I'm not sure if they're gonna even roll out dev kits for this, because I'm not sure if this is crowdfunded. I think it is crowdfunded. I think the Atari box is crowdfunded. But if they start rolling out dev kits and they start pushing this to the limit to create games for the console, we could actually see some pretty good consoles. And if they could actually cut the 4K rendering from these games and actually put these games at 1080p and lock the frame rate at 60 frames per second, it would actually be pretty cool. Honestly, it would be pretty cool. So this console coming in running games at 1080p 60 frames per second, and coming with a nice price tag, maybe even like say $100 less than the Xbox One X, or maybe somewhere between the price of where the Nintendo Switch is, and let's say the PlayStation 4, not the Pro, like the PlayStation 4, somewhere around there, or maybe even the PlayStation 4 price, somewhere around there. A lot of people will actually draw to this console because they're saying, hey, we're going to get the same generation games, older games, and we're going to get it at a cheaper price. Sign me the heck up, right? So you're looking at Atari coming in the console race right now when gamers are kind of at a all-time high right now. You have gaming going as far as to creating, having movie directors come in to write scripts for games. You have gaming going as far as to making like $7 or $15 billion, in sales, and like millions of dollars in microtransactions and all that stuff. So it would be a great time now for Atari to actually come into the race. And even though, as much as I'd say that people have joked about this a lot, and I've done videos on it a lot, and I've been called out for it for clickbaiting or whatever, but it would be great now if Sega would have joined the fray, because now you'd have a completely different zone right now, where you'd have Microsoft and Sony battling out with 4K. You would have Nintendo and Atari battling out with with interface and pretty much 1080p graphics, and pretty much just maintaining their regular graphics and just trying to provide games to run on their consoles so people can enjoy. And then you'd have Sega come into fray now, where Sega would probably be somewhere around where Atari and Nintendo would be. So you'd probably most likely you'd have Atari and Sega doing their thing, where they'd probably be in their own battle, and then there'd be Sony and Microsoft in their battle, and Nintendo would probably stay in the middle doing their own thing as always, because we know Nintendo always tries to stay. It's like, oh, those guys are playing over there, I'm just gonna go play over here by myself in the sand. That's pretty much Nintendo's mo. So like, it's like the way they roll. But the thing is, Atari making the decision to come back in the console race right now, the console world right now, it's not a bad idea. It's a great idea because whether this console is a runaway hit, they don't have to pay anybody to like boost this console, right? All they have to do is just make their console, put their console out there. People will buy it because there will be people who buy it for reviews. People will buy it for teardowns. People will buy it for reviews. People will buy it just to have it to play. People will buy it because they want to have it as a collector's item. People will buy it for the fact that it's a freaking Atari console, right? People just buy the console. So it doesn't really matter whether or not the console is super, super great or it super, super sucks. People will buy it regardless. And the thing is, as long as they do this right and they play their cards right and they actually drop it with some launch titles, don't they could like the thing is I don't want to say like Nintendo because when the Nintendo Switch launched, it was 1-2 Switch and Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which were the launch titles. And I'm not sure if there were other launch titles, but I know, I think Just Dance. But I know 1-2 Switch was one of the launch titles, and Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild was one of those launch titles. And that was just two. And the Switch took off, right? They advertised Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. If Atari actually starts, advertising an actual game, and just kind of does something different, because the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, the drawing factor to it was the fact that, hey, you could stay from one side of the mountain on one side of the planet and look over the other side of the mountain or the other side of the planet and see it and say, okay, I want to go there. And you can actually go there and see it while you're going there. That was one of those things. It was the kind of game that if you could actually go 60 million feet in the air and see somewhere, you could glide over there because you can see it. So that was one of those things that kind of attracted people to the game. So I really think that Atari did a wise decision right now. I mean, win or lose or draw, they did what they thought was right, and they did what they thought we thought was right. And I'd love to get my hands on one of these Atari boxes for reviews. I probably won't open it. I don't think I'd ever open that stuff unless it starts, like giving malfunctioning or whatever. But I'd like to get a hold of it, have it played. It would be my second ever console, and it would be an amazing thing. But for you guys, I'm not sure what your guys' opinions are. Do you guys think it was a great idea for Atari to actually re-enter the console race? Do you think it's a good idea for Sega to take a page out of their book and actually enter the console race? Maybe they should wait until the next console race starts and they make their next gen console. Or do you think that Atari kind of shouldn't have done this? They should have just stayed doing software or whatever. And Sega should stay doing software. And both of them shouldn't really like go, oh, well, yeah, we should do this because, we can make money off it. But, just let me know, guys, because honestly, this is going to be really, really great when this happens. And I'm going to be right here to cover all of it. So, guys, if you like this video, please hit the like button. Please hit the share button. Please hit that subscribe button and turn on the post notifications so you can be notified every single time I drop a video like this. And also, leave your thoughts down in the comments. Let me know. Do you think Atari did the right thing by announcing this Atari box? Yes or no? Do you think that they did the right thing by coming into the console race? Yes or no? Do you think that they should probably do something special, like maybe a Pong tournament edition with some cool features and new graphics? Yes or no? Do you guys think that the Atari box is the best console that will ever come out, or do you guys think it's probably going to be the worst console that ever come out? Leave all that stuff down in the comment. Let's start a discussion. I'll be here to answer your questions. I'll be talking to you guys through. I'll be giving you guys my opinion as well. And if you guys say stuff that actually sounds good and I never thought about it, like, hey, that sounds good and I never thought of that, just let me know, guys. Hit up the comments. Tell me, guys, what you think. Let me know exactly what's going on through your head. This has been a video. It is super late, and I'm super tired, and I'm going to go get some super sleep. This is Triple S Storm, guys. Have yourself a good time. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you guys in another video.